You are welcome here regardless of your income, your educational level, your religion, or your position in society. You are welcome here regardless of who you love or who you vote for. You are welcome here regardless of the regrets that burden you or the mistakes that you have made. You are welcome here regardless of whether you are feeling strong and confident in yourself or whether you are in need of healing. In this community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. We are here to help each other along the spiritual pathways that lead towards happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. We are here to minister to all peoples and to our planet. We are here to stand on the side of love in all things. Our BUUF theme for the month is mental health. Today we are going to focus on anxiety. Anxiety is the product of being culture-bearing being. Everyone has plenty of anxiety and everyone has to learn to deal with it. The title of this service is Breaking Free of Anxiety. That is not quite right. Anxiety is a very difficult emotion to bear. However, it is an emotion that we need. So with anxiety, it is more about learning how to manage it rather than escape from it. In our current age of turmoil, we see more and more people managing anxiety very poorly. The young man who takes an assault rifle to the mall, the politician that steps off of reality and gives him or herself over to blatant fantasies, and anyone who has been trapped by addiction of some sort are all examples of anxiety poorly managed. On the other hand, some anthropologists believe that anxiety is a foundational motivator in the creation of civilizations. We will talk more about all of this in today's sermon. Additionally, Susie Smith will talk about her strategies for dealing with anxiety, and we are all going to have a chance to practice dealing with our individual anxieties during this intergenerational service. I will give full details after the announcements, which we can do right now. But before we go launch into the announcements, how many people here are prepared to take part in the intergenerational service, even though we do not have any children? We have one person who has, okay, we got 1, 2, 3, okay, that's good. So let's do our announcements then, and then I'm going to extend.
Can we still take, I have a question. Can we still take part if we couldn't print anything out?
Yes, actually, well, since you brought the subject up, Beth, here's what my thought for this is. Human beings are great imaginers. So if you aren't prepared, you can either quickly prepare and make a paper chain for yourself, or you can imagine making a paper chain and have an imaginary number of links that will still count as part of the links of the total change. And we are taking pledges on the total change. Here, you see I have my chain here that actually I did not make this chain. My grandson Felipe made this chain for me. You can see it's a very simple process to make these chains. This one was made with staples and colored paper, but it doesn't need to be. It can be any kind of paper you want. I'll talk, like I said, I'll talk a little more about that when we get. Also, I'm hoping that you will make pledges of a half a penny or a penny per link on the total chain. And maybe we can imagine a chain with, say, maybe even 1,000 links. That would be like really good. Because we have someone who will, who says she will manage, match how many ever links we make, even if they're imaginary. So let's go with the announcements then. They're printed in the back of or underneath your bulletin on your cell phones if you're intergenerational service that we had planned for the day, but apparently we have very few children, or none. So we're going to have to improvise a little bit. So, but I'll read what I have written here. One of the best known spiritual facts is that a really good way of dealing with anxiety is to act with compassion, what the Buddhists call loving kindness. It turns out that the world needs a lot of loving kindness, especially now when there are so many who go hungry every day and millions that are in real danger of starving. Today, we're going to practice loving kindness by making paper chains. It was originally planned to make one long chain, but we are back doing things on Zoom. So we are going to make many short chains in our homes. And as I said, if you can't make them, you can imagine them. It was also originally planned that just the kids would do this, but since we are on Zoom, the adults are invited to make chains also. The chain is a metaphor for what that which connects us back to life and its mystery and goodness. You can begin making your chains right now if you have the stuff, or you can begin imagining. Just start cutting sheets of paper or newspaper into strips about 3/4 of an inch wide by 11.5 long, and then start gluing, taping, or stapling your chain together. You can, in addition to making our chains, we are accepting pledges over chat for each link made in our cumulative chains. We're hoping for at least 500 links. So a penny or half penny per link would be a great pledge. The total pledges will be matched by a donor who wishes to remain anonymous. All money for the pledges will be split between the World Food Program, which is my favorite, and the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which is a very good organization. And now for the kindling of the chalice, which I was going to have a chalice here, but I forgot. So we're going to have to imagine that too. So let's imagine the chalice. The words today are from Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Have you ever had this curious thought that whatever is defines what's not? It's a most peculiar paradox. Our world comes paired in opposites. You can only go up if you also go down. You can only know square if you also know round. You can only know silence if you also know sound. You can only know you when someone is around. It's the most peculiar paradox. Our world comes paired in opposites. Is there something that makes you afraid? That's precisely how our world is made. Is there something that you think you want? There's something else that you do not. It's a most peculiar paradox. The world comes paired in opposites. So I say strive, perhaps you'll thrive. That's how you perceive that you're alive. But if you go after what you think you lack, something or someone will push back. Take a lesson from the moon and tides. The tide ebbs low and the tide runs high. It's a most peculiar paradox that our world comes paired in opposites.
Amen, and thank you. That was very lovely. Yes, a round of applause for Jim. And I hope that you will record that and get it to our office administrator so we can use it again. That was lovely. Then that is actually one of the big problems. Language is dual, but reality may not be. So always we struggle. We always struggle to create better and better language maps of reality, and yet somehow they always slip away. So thank you for reminding us of that, Jim. Very good. Lang Syne. By Ada Lorenz. And a round of applause for Ada. You see that the happy look on her face. Thank you. That was very lovely. Ada is 8 years old.
Okay, good. All right. So we all remember that song from the 1980s. Don't worry, be happy. And one of my favorite Bob Marley songs advises us, don't worry about a thing, because every little thing's gonna be all right. It seems like every time we go to a resort for vacation, or at least back pre-COVID, when we actually did go to resorts for vacation, we'd always find ourselves singing along with those songs multiple times a day. And when you're on vacation, that's great advice. Don't worry. Put things on hold and relax. But I think that in our day-to-day lives, don't worry is lousy advice. We need to worry. I'm going to give you an example. I have a friend who had a lovely home just outside of Atlanta. The area where she lived was a humble working class neighborhood when her grandfather had purchased the home many years before. But as so often happens in big cities, the area had gentrified. People were buying up these cute little craftsman bungalows, tearing them down and building these multi-million-dollar estates. Property values went crazy. Soon, my friend couldn't afford to pay the taxes on her house. She owned it free and clear, but she mortgaged the house just to pay the taxes. And I asked her, well, what are you going to do? This is not going to work out. And she said, you know what? I'm not going to worry. So 5 years and a couple of mortgages later, she lost the house to foreclosure. And I couldn't help thinking, if she had just taken the time to sit down and worry and figure out a solution to the worry, she wouldn't have had such a disastrous result. Now, granted, that's an extreme example. But my point is that refusing to worry can cause all kinds of problems. And we know this. You ever noticed your car making a funny noise and you thought, well, I'm just not going to worry about that right now. And then a month later, you wish you had when you end up beside the road? Worry is useful to us. Worry keeps your thoughts focused until you take care of the task at hand or get past whatever obstacles in your way. If you have a big project due at work, you need to worry. If you're in school and you got a test coming up, you better worry, said as a former teacher, of course. The key is that when you have a worry, you work through it, and it's different for everybody. Maybe it means completing a task. Maybe you need to journal. Maybe you need to talk to somebody and come up with a... The way you deal with the worry depends on, of course, who you are and what the worry is. There's not one right answer. But when you find yourself worrying, you need to listen to that. Listen to yourself. Now, I'm going to make a distinction here between worry and anxiety. And maybe because I've spent too much time in therapy, but worry and anxiety are two very different things, at least for me. Anxiety happens when you have a whole bunch of worries and you push them aside, kind of try to keep them out of your consciousness. Now, they're still there, just festering back in the background. And eventually, all those little tiny worries that you haven't addressed manifest themselves as anxiety. Anxiety happens when all of those worries move from being thoughts in your head to being physical symptoms in your body. I suffer from anxiety. I had anxiety attacks for years, and it can be crippling. Now, I know those of you who know me, and Jim kind of said this to me already, you know, you're thinking, how in the world can this extrovert that we all know who makes a living audiences of strangers claim to have anxiety attacks? Again, it's not the same thing as worry. Talking to people doesn't worry me. I've been doing it all my adult life. I was a bartender. I was a high school teacher. Put me in front of a group of people, I can talk. That doesn't worry me, so it doesn't cause me anxiety. But on a day when I've had all these little worries, maybe for the last several days, and left things undone, when I've been too busy to address my worries and have shoved them aside instead of working through them, my mind becomes too full to handle one more thing. At those times, some tiny little incident, maybe I made a wrong turn and ended up on the wrong road momentarily. Maybe I forgot to fill the dog's water bowl. All of a sudden, that morphs into an anxiety attack. I feel like I can't breathe. My heart starts to race. I get dizzy. And invariably, I start to cry uncontrollably. Not because I got lost momentarily or because the dog is thirsty, but because my entire mind and body has gone into panic mode. By the time anxiety sets in, I can't even remember what the worries were. I'm just overwhelmed, sick, and unable to function. I often have to go to bed because I'm physically unwell. Over the years, I've been to the emergency room multiple times because I thought I was having a heart attack. It turned out to be anxiety. So, what have I learned from all this? You worry when you need to, and figure out what kinds of worries can build up on you. For me, it's uncertainty. On the one hand, I've always been kind of a free and easy, fly by the seat of your pants kind of person. On the other hand, I've always had a lot of anxiety. I got to kind of give Glenn credit for this one. When we met, as you know, we spent a lot of time kayaking. He always showed up with this printed out map of the river, starting points, ending points, all in front of him. He knew every turn, everything we'd face. He had a checklist of what he was going to take with him. And I thought, that's a bit much, all that planning. But he was always the calmest person I knew, and he still is. It took a while, it took years, as a matter of fact, but I suddenly realized that I could get rid of my anxiety by becoming a planner too. And it's been transformational for me. You want to know where we're going to be on the second Tuesday of September? Just ask me or him, because it's on our Google Calendar right now. You want to know what we're going to be having for dinner on Friday? Let me check the notes on my phone because the menu is there. Now that may not work for you, but that's what's worked for me. That planning helps me get rid of those small worries as they pop up. I don't get overwhelmed. I don't get anxiety. So I don't think that it's a matter of not worrying. You need to worry, but learn how you worry and make worrying work for you. Find your worry style, if you will, and figure out how to keep from having anxiety.
So for my message, first, we are all experts in dealing with anxiety. We are language using animals. The language match we make never quite match reality, so we become anxious. There are lots of ways to manage anxiety. Some very good ways are work, making art, performing acts of loving kindness, creating positive culture, being an active part of a religious community, exercise, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan, practicing gratitude, forgiveness, and generosity, or any activity that brings your spirit closer to your true nature and works towards the common good. Today's chain, making exercise is a good way to deal with anxiety because it works for the common good and it gets our hands and mind involved. Some not very helpful ways of dealing with anxiety are creating drama in your life, becoming a religious or political fundamentalist, getting addicted to drugs, food, TV, alcohol, sex, shopping, overwork, nicotine, gossip, worry, hate, or caffeine, to name just a few of the many destructive ways of dealing with anxiety. The important thing to remember is that we all have anxiety and plenty of it. Further, we spend significant amounts of time and energy defending against it. Interestingly, some disciples of psychotherapy even suggest that we dose ourselves with varying amounts of anxiety several times a day to keep our behavior in tune with our families and the greater society. I believe this is probably true. If you are skeptical, I invite you to pay attention to yourself for 24 hours and see if your mind spontaneously calls up events either in the past or you imagine in your future that did or would cause you social embarrassment or even some kind of harm to you or a loved one. Anxiety dosing even happens in our dreams. For years in my 30s, I had a recurring dream where I am preaching a sermon from a pulpit. The congregation is enraptured with my message, but behind the pulpit, I'm not wearing any pants. That was an anxiety dream, I am pretty sure. Let's take a closer look at anxiety. Otto Rank, a disciple of Sigmund Freud, thought that defending against anxiety is the foundation of civilizations. I think he is right. Freud, as you remember, thought that the sublimation of the sex drive is the basis for the creation of culture and civilization. I have never liked that. I think Rank got it right. It is anxiety. It is dealing with anxiety that saw the rise of the great walled cities of antiquity and the more recent nation states. Dealing with anxiety is the root of all great religions. put people on the moon, developed the internet, and more recently has given us several COVID vaccines. I think it is important to understand where anxiety comes from. Why is our species so anxious? The theory that I most subscribe to is common to many psychoanalytic models. When we are acculturated as very young children, we very quickly learn what is acceptable behavior to our parents and what is not. Because we fear the loss of love from parents and often associate this loss of love with death, we hide from ourselves and from our parents those parts of ourselves that are not acceptable. Consequently, a shadow is cast in the psyche that hides parts of our human spirit from ourselves. These parts are hidden because they are too painful to bear. They are mostly parts of ourselves that are destructive and death-dealing. These shadow parts are often our inner sounds. These shadow parts are often our inner sounds. Our inner sounds like path rhymes with poles. The shadow can, however, include parts of spirit that would be very helpful were we not afraid of them, like a passion for poetry or one's true sexual orientation. These parts of ourselves cause us anxiety when they slip out from underneath the cover of our shadows. They cause us anger and hate when we see these parts manifest in others. Anxiety transmogrified into judgment and hate, plus a bunch of political fundamentalism, accounts for the current difficult political division in this country. I have, for instance, have an acquaintance who for years fought venomously and with a great deal of energy the ordination of gay clergy in his denomination. Somewhere in his mid-40s, he discovered he was gay himself, his true sexuality neatly hidden by his shadow. By way of another example, one of the reasons we enjoy shows like Law and Order and other crime shows is the criminals in these shows represent our shadow material. They do destructive things and do not follow the rules. We feel a bit of relief when at the end of the show, those that follow the rules defeat those that do bad things and do not follow the rules. We do not realize that these TV dramas are representations of our inner struggle to keep the shadow material hidden from ourselves. This brings me to what I think is the very best way to deal with anxiety. First, bring your pain back to yourself. Stop blaming the Democrats, the communists, the Taliban, or the younger generation for the world's troubles. Pull your anxiety back into yourself. Within you is where the work can begin. Anxiety is like a thread. Grab hold of the thread and pull. You may over time manage to entice a part of yourself out of your shadow. If you sit with your anxiety a bit and treat it as a friend, which it is, part of your shadow material will come into the light of consciousness. What comes out from behind your shadow is an important part of you that you need for living a vital life. Okay, so how is our chain coming then? Do we have a report on the chain from our mathematician?
So far we have, you said 100, Jim, and we have 129 from Lois, but I don't know how many other links other people added.
Okay, well, we're going to do a little meditation now, and that will give people time to report in with their links. If they either imagine links or real links, it makes no difference. If you want to imagine 100 links or 200 links, that would be great. So let's begin our meditation for those of you who can meditate and are willing to sit quietly and to be open to the possibility that life has to offer us. There is, in the deepest stratum of the human psyche, a place of stillness. We have long recognized that when we sit with the stillness, that our sufferings are untangled and that we often achieve states of happiness, gratitude, wonder, and love. From the stillness flows the manna that reveals life's goodness and the experience of being fully alive in this moment. If we go to the stillness, our hearts can be healed. Let's open ourselves to the healing stillness by going there now. As you're able and willing, assume a comfortable position with your eyes closed and just breathe. That is all you have to do. Just focus on your breath. Don't worry about your thoughts and emotions. They will come and go. Breathe in and out, find your stillness and let your soul rest there for a moment. And so mote it be. Thank you, Candace. And
$331.45. That's based on 647 links times 35 cents total per link. Plus we had 2 extremely generous donors who are donating $100 regardless of how many links. So $331.45 right now.
okay, well, thank you. That's lovely. Now, and does that include the two $200 are the $200 donations, the $300?
Well, it's $250, so it equaled 100. So yeah, including
okay,
those.
okay. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, and you can send your donation.
Oh wait, Jim. People are sending me additional numbers. How about I report out after the service because I'm getting more now.
Okay, we will report. So it looks like we're going to be able to contribute about $600 or $700 to the World Food Program and the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. I'd just like to say a word about both those are excellent charities to donate to. They 80 to 85% of what you donate goes to directly to aid. And I know my favorite is the World Food Program because they are donating. They're all over the world. I mean, they got trucks, they got ships, they got airplanes that get food to where people need to be. Now, granted, the food is not great. You know, they don't serve you know, gourmet meals, but they have big bags of rice, big bags of beans, big bags of corn that go to these areas where people need them so badly. And right now, one of the areas, unfortunately, is Afghanistan. So lots of opportunity to give. And I thank you all for your generosity. Do we have anything now that would, I tell you what, maybe we should just go to our circle talk. And I'd like everyone to hang around for circle talk so they can hear exactly what the total is before we adjourn. So
just need to extinguish the chalice.
Yes, I will. We extinguish the imaginary chalice. Jan, Nan, do you have have your chalice with you that we can extinguish? Okay, Nan has our chalice. It's not imaginary. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. And thank you, Nan, for having that handy. And now, our musical benediction.